The C-17 Acroft's engines whined as we began our descent. That familiar feeling in the pit of my stomach wasn't turbulence. It was the anticipation of finally breathing Texas air again. 12 months of sand, heat, and constant vigilance were about to be replaced by the quiet simplicity of my family's ranch. You know that moment when your boots first touch home soil? The air smells different, like dust and cedar and memories. For just a second, you let your guard down. You think, maybe everything's going to be okay now. Maybe I can finally relax. The Army driver dropped me at the end of the long gravel road. "You need help with your bags, Sergeant?" he asked. "I'm good," I told him. "I've been carrying this weight for a year. I can manage the last 100 yards. But as I walked toward the gate, something felt off. The hair on my neck stood up. That same instinct that kept me alive overseas was telling me something was wrong here, in the one place that should have been safe. Then I saw it. A heavy-duty padlock, brand new, shiny brass, well, a simple latch had always been. I reached for the key I'd carried in my pocket through every patrol, every mission, every lonely night. The key that symbolized home. It didn't fit. My heart started pounding. The Harris family ranch, 150 acres that had been in our blood for 4 generations, wasn't just different. It was alien territory. I climbed the fence, my duffel bag catching on the barbed wire. The silence was the first thing that hit me. No birds, no livestock, just this eerie quiet that felt wrong. The front porch, where my grandfather would sit and whittle, was painted a sterile beige instead of the deep red my father maintained every spring. The workshop where he taught me to rebuild my first truck engine, now it was just a storage shed with generic plastic containers. My mother's garden, her pride and joy with tomatoes, lavender, and the roses my dad planted for their anniversary, was gone, replaced by gravel and those perfect, soulless landscaping rocks you see in magazine spreads. Even the mesquite tree where I carved my initials as a kid had been butchered, pruned into some symmetrical shape that bore no resemblance to the wild tree I remembered. I peered through the living room window. Bare walls. The spot where my grandfather's Purple Heart had hung was just a clean square of paint surrounded by dust. Every family photo, every school diploma, every piece of history that made this place ours, erased. In the mailbox, stuffed to overflowing, I found their first communication. Letters from Ridgeview Community Board on expensive paper with embossed seals. The language was all legal jargon designed to intimidate normal people. They claimed emergency authority to sell the property due to prolonged abandonment and chronic violations. To most people, it might have looked official. But after dealing with military bureaucracy for 15 years, I knew fake documentation when I saw it. I scanned the QR code on one letter. The website loaded with stock photos of houses that didn't exist in our part of Texas, looked more like California suburbs. The board members listed had names I'd never heard in this town. The contact number had an area code 3 states away. Domain registration, 3 days old. This wasn't just a scam. This was an organized hit on my family's legacy. I went next door. Mrs. Callahan nearly dropped her coffee mug when she saw me. "Luke? Honey, we thought you sold the place." Her voice trembled. "They showed us papers with your signature. Said you'd agreed to everything before you deployed." At her kitchen table, the same one where she used to serve us fresh cookies after school, she told me everything. 6 weeks ago, men in uniform shirts with official-looking badges started knocking on doors. They called themselves a Ridgeview HOA Enforcement Division and cited violations nobody had ever heard of: grass too tall, fence too low, bond too close to property lines. They started posting bright orange notices: abandoned property subject to emergency sale. Mrs. Callahan showed me cell phone footage she'd taken. Something didn't feel right, she explained. The trucks had rental plates. The city logo was just a sticker. Amateurs playing at being authorities. As I left her house, I noticed a white sedan parked down the street. The guy inside was pretending to scroll through his phone, but he looked up every few seconds, watching me. I memorized the license plate. That night, I drove to the county courthouse and pulled the property records. There was a deed transfer filed with a notarized signature that looked exactly like mine. Same loops, same pressure points. It could have fooled my own mother. But they slipped up, The notary stamp used a registration number that had expired 2 years earlier. Rookie mistake. I made photocopies of everything and started building a file the way I prep for a mission briefing. Every document, every timestamp, every signature, evidence. Then I made a call I hadn't made in years. A secure number that routes through multiple channels before it rings anywhere. "Yeah, it's me," I said quietly. "I need background checks on these 4 names tonight." The voice on the other end didn't ask why. "Confirmed. You will have it by sunrise." The report hit my inbox before dawn. The people behind this fake HOA. Thomas Cole, former security guard with a history of intimidation tactics. Janine Porter, real estate assistant fired for embezzlement and gambling debts. Rick Dawson, contractor with 3 liens on his business and a history of fraud. Margaret Hale, retired teacher, probably roped in for credibility. And the mastermind, Melissa Grant. I started tracking them. Thomas's address led to a strip mall mail drop. The clerk remembered him, paid cash, always nervous. His forwarding address pointed to a rundown motel. I watched him step out in a cheap suit, clipboard under his arm, walking with that fake confidence that screams bluffing. I tailed him for an hour. He never actually inspected anything, just snapped photos and left. When a homeowner asked for his badge number, he mumbled and walked away. Amateur hour. Janine's HOA office was a shared workspace. The receptionist said she came twice a week with a stack of envelopes. On her desk, pre-filled violation notices, fake letterheads, courier receipts. But no tax ID, no incorporation paperwork, nothing legal. Rick's construction site told me everything. He was scamming elderly folks into paying for fake foundation repairs. When I started recording him, he went pale and started stuttering. These weren't criminal masterminds, just greedy people who thought military families were easy targets. Then there was Margaret, the teacher. She wasn't a villain, just naive. She thought she was helping manage a real community association. She showed me minutes from fake board meetings typed on pastel stationery. When I asked where they met, she said, "The coffee shop across town, the one that closed last year." My heart broke for her. She'd been used. But Melissa Grant was different. Cold, sharp, calculating. Her house was in the expensive part of town, brick facade, security cameras, luxury SUV. The kind of place you buy when you're profiting off other people's losses. I watched her run calls from her porch, sign for courier deliveries, organize everything like a CEO running a business empire built on stolen homes. That night, I called the secure number again. Target confirmed. Melissa Grant. I've got names, addresses, and proof of coordinated fraud targeting deployed families. The answer was simple. Understood. Proceed to Phase 2. While I gathered intel, they were still working. Thomas started harassing families in military housing near the base. Janine was filing fake liens faster than clerks could process them. Rick was pushing fraudulent property closings. Melissa was arranging buyers for stolen homes. It wasn't just about me anymore. I pushed back the only way I knew how, strategically. I funneled everything to contacts in legal, banking, and federal channels. Within days, the county clerk's office started questioning Janine's paperwork. Banks froze Rick's accounts. Homeowners compared notes online, realizing their violation notices use identical templates. Then I called Melissa myself. Stop now or face the consequences. Her panic was palpable. By Tuesday, everything was unraveling. Thomas complained that homeowners were photographing his license plates. Janine's workspace demanded her tax ID. Rick's clients demanded refunds. Even Margaret's friends were asking why HOA meetings only had 3 people. Melissa tried to rationalize it as bureaucratic hiccups, but she knew someone was pulling the strings. What she didn't realize was that I'd built an entire case file connecting every forged document, every dollar move, every false claim. By Thursday, her empire crumbled from within. Thomas disappeared. Janine fled the state. Rick got cornered by investigators. And Margaret broke. She went to the sheriff with everything. Meeting notes, emails, documents Melissa made her type. Desperate, Melissa called a public meeting to restore confidence. She booked the community center, put on her best suit, printed fake financial statements, and set up a podium with a banner reading "Stronger Together." The hall was packed, dozens of homeowners, some curious, others furious. Melissa walked in like she owned the place, smiling, confident. She'd talk about property values and neighborhood integrity, using big words she thought sounded official. For a few minutes, it worked. Then someone asked for the EIN, the federal tax number. She fumbled. Another resident stood up. "Where are our dues deposited?" "What bank?" He held up a statement showing her routing number belonged to an online-only bank 3 states away. You could feel the shift in the room. One by one, neighbors pulled out documents. "This code violation doesn't exist. This ordinance number isn't real. These meeting dates are fake." Then from the back row, my voice cut through the noise. Calm, controlled. "For the record," I said, standing up, "my name is Colonel Luke Harris. I'm acting liaison to an interagency task force in cooperation with the U.S. Marshal Service. Melissa, we need to talk outside." The room went silent. Melissa turned white. Her fake smile vanished as she realized I wasn't just a soldier whose house she'd stolen. Outside, she tried to regain composure. "You're the veteran, the one whose property. Look, this was all a misunderstanding." I stepped closer. "No, it wasn't. You didn't steal from a helpless soldier. You picked a fight with someone who leads them." Her breath caught. You're not." "Brigadier General," I said evenly. "Fort standing command." The color drained from her face. Everything clicked. The audits, the bank holds, the investigations. Every move she thought was bad luck was a precision strike. "Every delay you faced," I said quietly. "Every door that closed, every document questioned. That was me? You declared war on the wrong person. Melissa, I don't lose wars." Right then, headlights swept across the parking lot. 3 Hums rolled in, followed by sheriff cruisers and federal vehicles. Soldiers and deputies stepped out in formation, calm, efficient, professional. I keyed my radio. "Operation Safe Haven is authorized. Evacuate the entire neighborhood. 30 minutes. Melissa's knees buckled. "Evacuate? What for?" "Restoring property," I said. "Every house you sold, every dollar you stole, it's all being undone by the book." Within minutes, the neighborhood came alive with controlled precision. Deputies went door to door explaining the process. Families were escorted out with dignity, given claim forms and hotel assignments. Soldiers cataloged belongings and secured evidence. It wasn't chaos, it was order. The kind of order criminals fear because it doesn't shout, it just moves. By sunset, every fraudulent document was logged, every escrow account frozen, every stolen deed marked for reversal. Melissa sat handcuffed in a federal SUV, watching her empire vanish. Over the next week, every affected family got their property back. The banks reimbursed losses. The county rewrote procedures to prevent this from ever happening again. When it was over, I walked through my ranch again. The air smelled like rain. The gravel was gone, the garden replanted. The mesquite tree was wild again, branches stretching like arms finally free. I hung my grandfather's medal back where it belonged. Sometimes justice doesn't rule. It doesn't make headlines. It just moves quietly, efficiently through people who care enough to fix what's been broken. Melissa Grant thought she could weaponize paperwork against soldiers. She forgot we understand structure better than anyone. What would you have done in my place? Share your thought below. If you believe justice should have teeth, share this story and let people know. Sometimes power wears a uniform, and sometimes it just comes home to make things right.